Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute high-stakes world of digital forensics to decode exactly how cyber professionals track down network intruders. We're going to look closely at the exact digital breadcrumbs left behind by threat actors. And, more importantly, we'll explore how security teams use these clues to either react to a devastating breach or, even better, proactively stop one dead in its tracks.
Okay, let's dive into this by anchoring our explainer on something we can all visualize, a physical break-in. Picture this. You get home after a really long day. You go to put your key in the door, but the lock is completely busted. You step inside, and there is an open window, plus muddy footprints tracking right across your living room floor. Now, you might not hear an alarm, and you might not actually see the intruder, but you honestly don't need to, right? Those footprints instantly tell you that your home has been violated. And that awful, sinking feeling in your stomach? That's the realization that an intruder has already been inside. The damage is already done. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the digital crime scene. Just like finding a broken lock or realizing your laptop is missing, hackers leave behind a literal digital crime scene. They leave concrete evidence when they breach a network. You see, in the world of cybersecurity, when an attacker infiltrates a server or a corporate network, they very rarely get in and out completely undetected. They always leave a trail of evidence. And the crucial point here is that discovering this evidence entirely flips the script. You are no longer building preventative walls. You are now dealing with an active emergency. When a security team spots this evidence, they aren't worrying about an attack that might happen. The alarm bells are ringing because the attacker is already inside the house. The entire mindset shifts instantly into a reactive street fight to contain the damage. That brings us to Section 2, defining the breadcrumbs. So what exactly do cybersecurity detectives call these digital footprints? Well, identifying them is step one of any investigation, and we call them indicators of compromise, or IOCs for short. An IOC is strictly reactive. It's the leftover proof of a successful infiltration. And I really want to stress the word compromise here. This isn't a warning sign. It is the hard, undeniable forensic proof that security has failed and an unauthorized party has successfully bypassed your defenses. It's literally the digital equivalent of those muddy footprints on your living room floor. To really make sense of these complex IOCs, it helps to categorize them by comparing them directly to physical evidence at a crime scene. For instance, if we find a known malware hash that was executed on an employee's laptop, that's a file-based indicator. It's just like finding the actual crowbar the burglar used to pry open your window. If we see a computer repeatedly trying to connect to a known malicious command and control, or C2, server in another country, well, that's a network-based indicator. Think of it as finding a walkie-talkie left on the table that is actively broadcasting to a getaway driver. And finally, if deep security settings are suddenly changed without IT's permission, that's a system-based indicator. It's the digital equivalent of the intruder actually changing the locks on your own doors so they can just come and go as they please. Now, in the real world, Security Operations Center analysts are actively sweeping their environments for anomalies exactly like these. These are the red flags that trigger instant panic. Let's look at impossible travel, for example. Imagine an employee logs into the corporate network from Omaha, Nebraska. 10 minutes later, that exact same account logs in from Australia. Well, the laws of physics tell us that's impossible, making it a massive red flag. Or what if your network suddenly experiences a huge spike in data transfer at 3 a.m. when everyone is asleep? Or maybe your antivirus software is mysteriously turned off, preventing security patches from downloading. These are all classic indicators of compromise that screen to a security team, hey, someone is here, and they are messing with our stuff. So what happens next? Let's look at Section 3, the emergency playbook. The very second a valid IOC is confirmed, the clock is ticking, and the financial costs of the breach are compounding by the second. Security teams execute a strict 4-step emergency playbook to quarantine the threat and eliminate the attacker from the network. First, they've got to stop the bleeding. If a laptop is infected, you pull it off the network immediately to isolate it. Second, they have to sweep the rest of the environment for that specific IOC to find patient 0, basically the very first machine infected, just to understand the total blast radius. Third, they clean the malware and restore the systems from untainted backups. And finally, they conduct a full forensic review to figure out exactly how the attackers got in, so they can slam that specific door shut forever.
But there's a big problem with this approach, which brings us to Section 4, the reactive trap. You see, there is a massive limitation to only relying on clues from things that have already happened. And honestly, this is where so many organizations fall way behind. Because bad guys are constantly changing their hash values, changing their server IPs, and updating their file names, the IOC that caught an attack yesterday might be completely useless tomorrow. Hackers absolutely know we're looking for their fingerprints. So what do? They just put on different gloves. They constantly mutate their malware signatures and cycle their IP addresses. If your security system only relies on a static watch list of yesterday's IOCs, it becomes incredibly predictable. It's truly like trying to navigate a modern, ever-changing city with a map from the 1950s. You are always going to be one step behind the bad guys. So how do we fix this? Section 5. Indicators of attack. To actually get ahead of attackers and stop them before your data is stolen, we have to shift our focus from the past to the present. We must analyze real-time behavior. And this is the core difference between an indicator of compromise and an indicator of attack, or IOA. Think back to our physical crime scene. The detectives arrive and they find the blood, the body, and the gun. That is the IOC. It's static, point-in-time evidence that requires a ton of manual reconstruction to figure out what happened. But what if there was a live video security camera that actually caught the suspect picking the lock, walking down the hall, and raising the weapon? That live behavioral feed, that is the indicator of attack. IOAs focus on the intents and the behavior of the adversary in real time, regardless of what specific mutated malware they happen to be using today. When we track an indicator of attack along a typical attack timeline, you can spot the live intent, things like lateral movement or credential theft, long before the final damage occurs. Think about it. If we only rely on IOCs, we might not get an alert until, say, hour 12, when data exfiltration is already happening and it's too late. But with an IOA approach, we are monitoring the actual behavior of the system. So if we see code execution, followed by an attempt to establish persistence, followed by lateral movement, even if we've literally never seen these specific files before in our lives, the IOA triggers an alarm. We catch them at hour 2, way before the ransomware is deployed or the data is stolen. And that leads us to our final concept, Section 6, customizing the defense. Because advanced adversaries often abandon commodity malware for custom tools as they progress through a network, your defense simply has to adapt to unique, targeted situations. Security teams can proactively reduce their attack surface by creating custom rules. For example, utilizing regex to completely block unauthorized remote tools like TeamViewer. Advanced threats don't just use standard attacks anymore, they use living off-the-land techniques. They exploit perfectly normal administrative tools to do their dirty work. To fight this, platforms like CrowdStrike allow security admins to create custom indicators of attack. Let's say your company never, ever uses the remote desktop tool TeamViewer. An admin can write a custom IOA rule specifying that if TeamViewer is ever launched via the command prompt, it should be immediately blocked and flagged as a high-severity alert. You aren't just looking for bad malware anymore. You are setting strict rules on behavior to stop a breach before it even starts. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really important thought regarding your own security posture. Are you stuck reacting to the past, or are you actively hunting in the present? Look, indicators of compromise are absolutely vital. You need them for cleaning up a mess, determining the scope of a breach, and ensuring a threat is fully eradicated. But they are inherently reactive. To truly secure an environment, you must evolve to track indicators of attack, watching the behaviors, the intent, and the real-time flow of activity. If your team spends all its time looking down at the floor for muddy footprints, you're never going to see the intruders standing right in front of you. Keep your eyes on the door, stay proactive, and stay secure. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.